Hello and welcome back to The Inverted Castle, a Metroidvania enthusiast podcast. I've lost my memory, but I'm told that my name is Eric Fox, and joining me as always, I assume, is a man who assures me he's been my good friend for many years, Mr. Thomas Blight.
Yeah, just keep talking into the microphone. Yeah.
I'm sure this won't awaken anything in you, just as we definitely didn't awaken anything evil in Castlevania, Order of Ecclesia, released by Konami back in 2008 for the Nintendo DS. This was more or less Koji Igarashi's last involvement in a main Castlevania title. I'm not including Harmony of Despair, but yeah, it's a pretty classic Castlevania action exploration for the most part, with a, its own unique take on how it approaches how do you build your character, I guess, with its glyph system.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically the card system and the soul system. I don't know. It's not that dissimilar.
It's not that dissimilar, but I think it's different enough. But spoiler alert, this is a game that has a decent core with a very mediocre game built around it.
So I take it it's not your favorite of the Castlevanias.
You know, the person who said that last month is not me.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not that keen on it either.
Yeah? Speak on that.
It didn't come together. I feel like a lot of the early game is just corridors of enemies, which I mean, I guess is pretty true of all Castlevania, but
yeah, it is not hidden at all in this game. The amount of, this is a hallway, you might have an extra room. Yeah, like the early game is set very discreet, like you pick from a world map of a place to go, and it's a small self-contained map. Half of them are just go from left to right, or if you're spicy, right to left.
Whoa.
I know. And you just fight like maybe 4 or 5 different enemies until you get to the end and a cutscene happens.
Yeah, I kind of wonder if they were doing the whole like, moving from right to left feels wrong.
It shouldn't. By this time in the series,
That's fair.
Not being a like left to right stage by stage entry should have been, like that's what it does, but maybe it was trying to like harken back to its roots in a sense, but I don't know, it just really left me wanting.
Yeah, so like, I don't know, and I guess this goes into like people's definitions.
I hate people's definitions.
The lack of continuity is a fairly big one to me, right? Like, I don't consider Demon's Crest a Metroidvania.
For the uninitiated, like myself, who has not played Demon's Crest, I assume it's likewise a discrete level-by-level collection?
Yeah, it's a level-by-level collection connected by a Super Nintendo Mode 7 world map a la Secret of Mana.
Okay. Sounds like a game that we probably will just skip at some point. It's on the list, but
yeah, I don't know. Ultimately, I don't consider it that Metroidvania-y, but I honestly, if this game weren't in the Castlevania series, I think Demon's Crest is probably closer than this game.
Oh, wow.
Except for Dracula's Castle itself.
Yeah, I wouldn't even call it a half, maybe back third, which kind of brings back the classic formula of having a big place to navigate, but by that point it's not only too little too late, you've already spent most of the game not in that like mindset, but also you've gotten all but one ability to like traverse. So Dracula's Castle itself also becomes fairly, it's not linear, but it may as well be. It becomes the maze problem of there's very little where you can't go, and so it's just following paths.
And actually, they do also have the one-way doors to let you backtrack more easily, which I don't know. I don't think they would have lost anything if they just let those be paths, honestly.
Oh yeah, like because Dracula's Castle also has like the warp zones within, and there's very little reason to come back to areas because you could always get to one of the places or get the goodies that were there. The backtracking, like shortcuts you're unlocking, you're probably never even going to walk back through them again because you'll just warp to the area itself.
Yeah.
I feel like the map design left a lot to be desired. I'm not sure if they just ran out of time or just ran out of ideas at this point, because this is the third DS Castlevania they'd made in as many years almost.
I guess. I mean, it's clear that they didn't prioritize interesting traversal, right? In terms of, like, you're not gaining cool abilities and being like, oh man, I can use that here. There's, like, two. One of them is double jump. The other one is fly. Is there anything else that's a traversal ability?
So you can go under the water.
Oh yeah, that was a traversal ability.
But you only get that immediately before the stage that requires you to go under the water, is the problem.
I mean, you at least go over the water first.
Yeah, but everything below the water during that literally just left to right, room after room after room, no deviation. Everything under the water is a chest, as well as what will later be a path to the lower section that you come at from a different stage, essentially.
Yeah, and a particular rant about that thing. So those bombs, right?
Yes.
There's bombs floating on balloons under the water.
Yep.
And the first time I encountered them, I was like, well, it's really awkward to try to move these. I must need to come back with, like, I don't know, gust or bubble spray ability or something. Nope, it's just janky. You're just supposed to move them. It's not even required for progression.
No, it allows you to get back to the surface part of that level, which, I don't know. Now that you have your dive ability, you can get a couple of chests as well as fill out the map. But I don't know, it's vaguely convenient when if you need to farm a certain enemy. We'll get back to that. But the stages were so small.
Yeah.
And all the traversal abilities you're getting were basically just in preparation for the next one, as well as, like, I think you need to go back for, like, maybe one or two major things. Like, there's this village whose inhabitants have been all kidnapped. You gotta rescue them all. There's a couple you can't get on your first, like, time through the zone, but that's it.
Yeah, when I started finding runes just in the environment, I was like, oh, maybe these are going to give me traversal abilities, right? And then they never did. I think you can maybe use Qubit as a platform.
Yeah, technically, I think you could probably use cubes, which is one of the glyphs that this game uses. Not unlike Time Spinner, where you have that ability that could create a platform.
Yeah.
But these cubes are tiny. Yeah, you could theoretically use that, as well as once you got the double jump to do your little kick bounce off of enemies. You can kind of get to a zone that's out of the way, but not often. And usually it's just better to wait until you have double jump or fly, unless you are insistent on doing 100%, which, I've done it. I did it for this run. Not worth it.
That's all glyphs as well?
All glyphs. I got all the villagers' side quests, all the map completion. You don't really get anything for doing all of that. Maybe some, neat equipment pieces. Like, I think you get your mastery ring, which lets you get bonus points to your, all the different glyphs, so like your weapons, your spells, whether it's piercing or it's fire. You kill an enemy, that gets experience, and as you get more experience, they do more damage.
Which is a hilarious thing to give you at the end of the game once you've done everything, but...
I will say, there's not a post-game, really. There's a boss rush, and the Julius mode of this one is instead this other character called Albus, which we'll get into with the story. Probably, I will say, Albus mode is probably my favorite of the bonus modes, just his particular set of skills. But again, he's in a game that is not as fun to traverse.
Yeah, I actually haven't gone through a Julius mode or a whatever mode in any of these games. I really should.
I would recommend at least checking it out, like getting a feel for what the character's doing. Like, these are definitely just arcade-style run-throughs of the game. No cutscenes, no nothing. Well, I guess Dawn of Sorrow kind of has one, but well, we may get to it.
It's not going to have any deep story revelations for me.
It's Castlevania. Not even the main game has real deep story revelations, if we're being real here.
That's true. I expected at some point to be explained why Shinoa is special, but no.
No. And speaking of Shinoa, hey, let's talk about the story of Shinoa, aka Order of Ecclesia, his main game.
Yeah.
Shinoa is the main character. Finally, Castlevania is learning from Metroid and having a female protagonist. Woo.
woo, I guess.
She has rad tattoos that allows her to absorb glyphs, which is like this sphere, ball, circle thing that is the idea of either a magic spell or a weapon. And by doing that, that's how you get your attacks, essentially. She has left and right equip slots, so much like Time Spinner, which is what I was kind of getting at back in that episode.
Yeah.
You can equip things and then like alternate between the two, and your MP bar essentially functions as stamina. So yeah, all the different things take different amounts of stamina. She's special in that she's the one that can do this, but why is she special? They just kind of found her, I guess.
Like, I assume they made her this way?
Yeah, she spends a remarkably small amount of this game's runtime actually having her own memories. So, anyway, let's get into the lore. So, Dracula's coming back. We know this every 100 years. Problem is, Belmonts, they vanished. Who knows where they went? We need another solution other than a cool guy with a whip. So, apparently, a bunch of people who have money and power are trying to figure this out. But this order of Ecclesia, run by Barlow, has figured it out. They have this rad new thing with glyphs called Dominus, and they've got this cool girl named Shanoa who can absorb this thing called Dominus in order to seal Dracula forever. At least that's what Barlow claims.
Every time you say that, I'm imagining it with the square quotes like it's a stand.
My power, Dominus.
Yeah.
Oh, man. You enter my shadow, and then bad things happen. That's the worst JoJo enemy. Look it up. I forget what his name is. Anyway, JoJo's aside, which actually I don't think this game has a JoJo's ability, unlike Aria of Sorrow.
That's fair. There doesn't really seem to be a muda.
Lost opportunity.
Shame.
Instead, Shanoa has a brother.
Barlow sent Albus away on a mission, conveniently at the point where he was going to be like, okay, Shanoa, it's time for you to absorb the Dominus rune. The beginning of the game definitely makes it seem like Albus is jealous, which kind of gets reframed later. But it also kind of seems like Shanoa is the only person who could ever do this. So what was your plan, Albus? I don't know.
Yeah, Albus was like basically, it's revealed later that he was trying to get Barlow to give him more time to figure out a way for him to do the glyph thing.
Yeah.
But Barlow's just like, nah, I got Shanoa here and, my own reasons for wanting it done now. So he tries to go against Albus's wishes. Albus is like, hey, nah, interrupts the whole thing, the whole Dominus ceremony, and makes off with the Dominus glyphs. There are 3 of them.
Yeah.
Shanoa wakes up, no memory, no emotions either, just like blank slate, and Barlow's just like, okay, we gotta start from brass tacks. Here's a combat tutorial. You gotta go after Albus and get Dominus back, okay? Cool. So you do. And then you go to a village which has been completely kidnapped. Everyone's gone by Albus. So you keep chasing him through a variety of stages. There are quite a few. They're all very short, as we've discussed. Each stage has a twin that's basically just a exact carbon copy with a bit of a different color filter on it and different enemies.
I didn't pay that much attention to it, but I guess it does.
Yes, every area is used twice. More or less. I think the bone area may not, but
Yeah. It feels so much less like reuse when they just give you traversal abilities to get to a part of the area that you never explored before.
I guess, yeah.
Like, it's almost functionally the same, isn't it?
It is, but I do feel like context and presentation makes a lot of your enjoyment of this kind of game. Even so, though something functions as a key, if you can make it feel like something more impactful, I don't know. Fun is the thing that happens in your brain.
Yeah, like there's an art to it. You can't just reduce it to the mechanical.
Yeah. Like at a certain point you're arguing like, well, it's just photons hitting your eyes that your brain interprets. It's not like it's real. Like, no, dude, I got to get invested in this magic tattoo lady.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to get invested in this amazingly blank slate.
That never really goes beyond that other than, oh, well, now I'm pissed after certain revelations, I guess, but still it's like this like distance of really just getting someone else's memory. But okay, so anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. in order to make that make sense, we need to talk about what Albus has been doing, which is kidnapping villagers and taking their blood, doing something with the Dominus glyphs, which every time you finally catch up to him, he'll give you one of them and have something cryptic to say about, your shared past and what he's been doing. But eventually, he finally cracks it, and he absorbs Dominus in himself, but it's implied that, oh man, now he's gone evil, and he is in fact Dracula or something.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's clear at that point or not, but you eventually kill him and absorb the final bit of Dominus, and if you had saved all of the villagers, and thereby, because by the way you save them is by absorbing a glyph above them that's trapped them in a piss crystal. By doing that, you also got some of the blood that they have, and it turns out that all of the villagers are also descendants of the Belmont clan, and their special blood made it so that Albus's memory can still live on through the Dominus glyph when you absorb it at the end. And so you learn what his plan is, as well as his spirit still talks to you like a ghost.
Yep.
But only if you have all of the good blood.
Yeah, otherwise you just go back to Barlow and he's like, great, now it's time to use Dominus on this suspiciously glowing rock.
This urn that glows red and black.
Yeah. Unsurprisingly, freeze Dracula, kills you, everything is awful.
Like, actually, yeah, using Dominus in its form always kills you, no matter what. But specifically that, Barlow's plan is, haha, my whole order was in fact a way to resurrect Dracula cool style. And this is what humanity really wants, obviously, is to be supplicant and consumed by our Dark Lord, which Albus eventually, I guess, figures out or whatever. But anyway, by learning the truth, you instead kick Barlow's ass. But in his last moments, he becomes the sacrifice to resurrect Dracula, not in the most powerful way, so, justify why you can still kill him. But his castle's back, and now finally we have a regular Castlevania adventure waiting for us.
I mean, potential way that you could look at it. You have Dominus, that's literally part of his power. He's incomplete.
That is true. It was actually revealed before even then that Dominus is based on Dracula's power, like a fight fire with fire thing, but Barlow was still kind of like, but we're still gonna definitely kill him though.
Yeah.
Please go chase after Albus some more, please.
Using evil magic against the evil people always works.
100% of the time.
Yeah. Well, apparently it does, but...
Yeah. I mean, Dominus and Shinoa's ability to use glyphs are not exactly the same, thankfully. But I guess you can also use all the stuff you find in Dracula's castle.
I mean, you literally pull it out against him in the final fight.
Oh, that's right. I forgot that's how you kill him. The last time I beat him was in Albus mode.
Wow.
He just dies. So I completely forgot about that cutscene death. Heavy quotes. Yeah, you're right. So anyway, literally no story happens between that and killing Drac. So... let's just fast forward to then. Hey, you killed Drac. Congratulations. He was a bad dude.
Yes. And then Albus from inside of Dominus reveals, hey, Dominus only requires a soul. So he is conveniently making the soul heroic sacrifice for you.
At that point, just yeah, cool. He may as well, I guess. He was also I was surprised he was still there when I first played it. Just oh, I thought, he was barely a ghost before.
At one point, they revealed that you're basically brother and sister.
Yeah.
I assume both orphans, but...
literally one line of dialogue. Hey, I guess I'm your brother.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to not know at the beginning, but I guess they're kind of doing the player is out of the loop too. This guy just seems suspicious.
As far as excuse plots in these games, it's fine. I remember harping on about the, handful of cutscenes that exist in the entirety of Aria of Sorrow. This is not really why I play these games. Just give me some gothic theming and some
Fair.
Decent map design. And I got one of the two. But yeah, you save the day and Shinoa smiles again. That's a great message. Just smile more, ladies.
I'm sure that's exactly what they intended.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I'm not hot on this game overall. At least as far as, the broad overview. Story was never going to land really, but at least it stayed out of the way. All of the villagers have their own, I guess, personalities, archetypes. They'll ask you to do things like get 5 bear asses,
Yeah.
find my cat,
Pictures of Spider-Man.
please draw a landscape portrait from the top of the lighthouse.
Yeah.
And that's just an item use, but none of them are particularly scintillating. Some of the rewards are useful, I guess, and my stats go up. But a lot of them are, okay, so you're going to need to get 5 of this 1% drop from an enemy that if you haven't gotten it already, you'll just have to Google. Or this only appears in a chest from the first 2 levels. And nowhere in the game does it tell you that's like chests have unique drops like that, or these are the areas it's in.
Yeah.
I remember explicitly the lady who wants cloth or cotton thread never getting it, because I always just assume like surely something's going to drop it, or I'll pick it up or buy it or something later in the game. Yeah, and the dress's numbers are kind of big, but
I coincidentally had the cotton thread. I'm not sure I actually ever got the cashmere, though.
I believe, yeah, cashmere is a rarer box.
Cool. Yeah, I did not do the grinding for that. I did not do the grinding for getting all glyphs. Not interesting to me.
Some of the glyphs, like, you absorb them, it takes a minute, but some enemies, instead of dropping it, will start to do an attack that has a glyph above them, which is neat. You can, like, stall their big attack. A couple of bosses have this as well.
I feel kind of dumb. I figured this out, that this was possible just before Albus.
That's when you'd want to do it.
There's the, like, yellow holy goat, like, enemies.
I couldn't tell you their actual name. I'm sure it's referencing some mythology.
Yeah. Those were the first ones that I realized, oh, hey, I can draw out their skill. And then found out that I had been killing all of the demons before they bothered to use their skill.
That's, yeah, like you can absolutely dish out enough damage for those guys. But yeah, there are elemental demons. They each have a magic spell. So that's how you get fire and wind. I think wind or ice at least.
Wind is from a location drop.
That is correct.
The small ice is from a demon. The big ice is from another location.
Yeah, I gotcha.
That one's the frozen waterfall.
Yeah, so yeah, there are a couple of like bonus like platforming challenges to get a glyph, and some of them you just have to kill an enemy a bunch, and thankfully you can see a vague notion of its rarity in the bottom screen, or if you're using the Dominus collection, just one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the collection does give you both the map screen and your current enemy's stats at the same time, which is pretty good as far as the collection goes. Like, irrespective of the game within it, M2 did a great job. If this was a review of just the collection, well, I'd have to play the other 2 games, but seems pretty solid.
Was there touch shenanigans in the original? Because, I mean, this is a DS game. Of course there's got to be touch shenanigans.
Only in Albus mode by this time. Like, Dawn of Sorrow had it a bunch, and everyone hated it. And so by Order of Ecclesia, it's basically excised, except Albus mode, in order to get around some of the, like, Shinoa's ability to enter a wall and come out the other side.
Oh yeah, I forgot that. That's a traversal ability.
Yeah, you get in Drax Castle, it's the last one, and then, like, whatever. You just go up, get it, and then maze your way through the rest of the game.
Yeah.
In Albus mode, you touch on the screen where you want him to warp to, and he'll warp there.
Oh. Okay.
It's very awkward because, at least playing on the PC, I have to take my hand off my controller, go to the mouse. You can actually use a in-game mouse equivalent, but I found it was easier just to use my hand. Very good to just kind of like skip entire areas, zones, whatever, but Albus's whole kit is pretty cool. We haven't even touched on all the things Shinoa can do, but Albus is pretty simple. He has a gun. He has a big bullet, a spiral bullet, a rapid fire bullet, a spinning fire kick that is invulnerable for its entire duration, as well as his piss crystals that don't really do much, but they go down in an arc.
His piss crystals.
I don't know how else. I can't remember what they're actually called.
That's color,
and they're crystals.
It was a glyph, and I've forgotten its name because I basically did not use it.
Yeah, it's not good. Or at least I didn't find a use for it.
Yeah.
But no, that moveset to have like almost entirely a ranged combatant, as well as like a host of like all like the different bullets have different element affinities. Pretty good. It's pretty fun to use. I just wish it wasn't a series of hallways and effectively a boss rush.
Fair.
But that's what the arcade modes tend to be anyway, so whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, how do you feel about glyph unions?
I mean, it was fine. I think to get more out of it, I probably needed to just sit in the village in front of the infinite heart thing and just try things out. Because I feel like there was not enough hearts to really experiment with it.
Yeah, I mostly just save them for bosses, but for the uninitiated, glyph unions, you basically, whatever you have in your left and right slots, if it's a valid combination, they will combine into a super move that uses hearts instead of MP. Think your big spells in Time Spinner, or there's somewhat equivalents in Aria, I believe. Some like the things that use a lot of juice.
Yeah.
They're your big moves, but they're based on what you use. So if you have 2 swords, big sword. If you have 2 fires, big fire. That's basically the pattern, and only a select few that fall outside of that actually use different things in each hand. I was just looking it up, and basically you've got, if you have a weapon and an element, it's a unique elemental sword usually. Light and dark create a big black hole thing. Fire and ice has its own little like cross blast, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mostly forgot about them.
Much like Time Spinner, I found the big hammer and was just like, that does the damage. I'll use that.
Interesting, because I barely used the hammers in this one. Also, just we keep mentioning Time Spinner. That was definitely the wrong order to play these games in.
How do you figure?
Because I kept just being like, wow, yeah, I see what they were doing here, but it was way smoother in Time Spinner. I don't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. If we had played these in reverse order, I think Time Spinner would have come out like a lot better in my estimation. Like, it clearly was inspired by its, like, the way it organizes your abilities. The fact that there's this main hub that has villagers who you rescued that have their unique, sub-quests to do. It's not that different, but by virtue of Time Spinner not having as punishing random drops, they went through smoother. The storylines that were in there were, while not, incredibly inspired, were Shakespeare in comparison to Order of Ecclesia's weird guy who wants pictures of a Yeti, or this weird potion seller who, I don't even know how to describe him. He just keeps insulting you and being like, nah, like, definitely, if you get me this potion, this will definitely be cure what ails you.
Oh yeah, and the merman meat that doesn't fall from the merman enemy.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for the glyphs, I, about midway through, switched to the like magic elemental ones, and basically didn't switch back. I don't really know why. A lot of the weapons I didn't actually feel were that nice feeling to use. The hammers in particular felt very slow.
Yeah, you can kind of get around it by doing the alternating like whap, 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 but you have to like backdash, cancel the ending lag. You have 3 basically loadouts that you can swap between. So what I would do is usually have some weapon, usually hammers, to deal with the armored enemies, because every enemy has its own unique weaknesses, so you do want to keep swapping out. Then I had the light spell, which just does a big circle. I really only had it to check for destructible walls, but it dealt a decent amount of damage to some enemies. And then wildcard on the end for just whatever the enemies seem to be most weak to.
Yeah, I used the light spell a lot. At some point I was just like, I don't have to aim, I just have to spam the light spell everywhere.
Yeah, like after you use both hands, it does take a minute for the actual projectile to disappear so you can do it again.
Yeah.
But, it does hit all around you a lot, so it's useful. That's one of the things I did like about the game is your core tool set is pretty expansive. I liked the glyph system of just having stamina for these, standing still and doing your combos. Do feel like I should have experimented more, or at least I could have. I don't know.
Yeah.
Again, it's hard to say because the game in which it is presented doesn't really challenge you in that way. Instead, it challenges you by throwing a boss that hits you for 200 damage if you don't sit just right.
Yeah, the bosses do hit pretty punishingly. I mean, most of them I felt pretty good about being able to dodge them.
Yeah.
I don't know. Some of the later ones maybe were a little ridiculous. Like, Eligor was...
I think every boss is mostly okay. Like, if you get hit, huge damage, but you can have a mitt full of healing potions to just pause and eat whenever, so that's fine. Eligor is a problem.
Yeah.
Eligor on its own, as a required boss, makes me rank this game lower. It is like, it's a huge boss, like bigger than your screen, and it's essentially a platform boss where you kind of like hit parts of it and destroy them. Go like it's a big centaur guy, kill its knees, go under his legs, hit his back knees, go up on his back. If you can, kill like the arrow shooting things and hit the back of his head. Meanwhile, he's doing something often off screen. You got to read his movements just right, or when you get hit for a ton of damage and get sent flying and have to climb him again.
Oh yeah, I fully abused the save states in the collection.
The save states, the rewind feature, it's modern day, I guess. It's a fight that, even with that, I was still like, okay, well, I got some damage in, I'll just eat some of my super potions, because I don't think there's anything harder than this in my memory. You've got a pretty sizable list of equipment to kind of deal with like all of the positions that you need to be shooting at, essentially. But a lot of them are useless. The light spell only hit a couple of times and not for much damage. And there's like, it's so tight, the safe zones you need to get to in between his legs and all that stuff, or to dodge his like rear back head thing.
Yeah, that's, I think, the real problem, is that the safe zones just felt increasingly arbitrary and small. And it's like, okay, this isn't even a matter of like reading the telegraphing. This is figure out the very small spot that you can sit in, right? And like on his back in particular, you slide, right?
Yep.
So you might start the attack in a safe zone and then slide out of the safe zone. And that's just kind of frustrating.
Yeah, in addition to that, he has a mountain of HP to kind of get through once you even get to his main weak point on the back of his head, the most dangerous spot to be in. And if you have any of your attacks at the wrong moment, you're kind of just like locked in as he rears back or his tail whips up, or if you haven't destroyed the arrows, they're still firing at you from both ends.
Oh yeah, definitely needed to take those out. I actually went back to a previous save state where I mean, I could have just jumped off of his back, I guess, to take them out.
Yeah, if you haven't killed the front one, it is very hard to get back in front of him without taking a massive amount of damage from both his head, his tail, his sword, which is always in front.
Yeah.
We're spending a lot of time complaining about this one boss, but it is that one boss of this game.
Yeah. I mostly used, what's it called? The Nova skeleton thing, Netetsuko.
Yes, as soon as you get that in Dracula's Castle, it is probably the best attack, in my opinion.
That's when I stopped using the weapons altogether. I was just like, this is just like what I was doing with the rapiers.
Yeah.
Except better.
Yeah, I don't think I had a weapon theoretically on one of my loadouts, but I think I was mostly just using that unless I needed to hit something above me. Yeah. It's a good spell. I just wish it was in a better game. Outside of that, oh yeah, right. One of the early things that they give you is magnesis, where you like magnetize to like a sphere in the background, and you can kind of like slingshot your way into things.
Yeah, that's what I assumed was the touch bullshit.
No, you don't use touch for that. In the original game, I don't believe.
Oh, okay. That's surprising to me, because it felt very much like a thing that you would take your stylus and slide her around to fling her.
See, now you're gaslighting me, and I'm not sure anymore.
I don't know. I never played this game.
Yeah.
Don't let me fill your head with my lies.
And I'm not sure if I'm like confusing it with like a similar thing in a previous DS game or something, but at the very least, you no longer have to do it that way. And there's a semi-bonus area where you can, or you'll use it for more of like a gauntlet of platforming challenges that you don't need to do, but it rewards you with some decent loot. But the main game kind of flirts with using it as an interesting puzzle thing, but outside of avoiding the first boss, it doesn't really.
There's also a weird thing where, like, with the first boss... Wait, second boss? Whatever. The giant skeleton.
Yeah, I consider it the first one.
Isn't there one in the Abbey?
I've forgotten it, so whatever that tells you.
That it's actually easier not to slingshot yourself to behind him.
Yeah, just stay in front of it.
If you just hold to push yourself upward, he'll just start backing up.
Oh, fun.
And then you can drop back down and attack him again.
Yeah, he's definitely more dangerous from behind.
I spent so long trying to do what I thought was the proper thing. Going behind him and fighting him like that. And I found out that you can literally just make him backstep, drop down, throw some more knives at him, and then get back up on there and make him backstep again.
Were you using knives on a skeleton?
I was.
Was that your main?
That was the ranged attack, so it was very convenient.
Oh, fair enough.
And they shoot super fast, so it didn't matter that he was damage reducing it.
I guess.
I don't know. I found the hammers very awkward to use, like I said.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, just whap, whap, whap hammers. Wasn't too bad, but yeah, as a boss, if he hit you, you only really get 2 or 3 hits before you're dead. And healing items at that point is a premium, because you haven't rescued anybody.
Yeah, I used the knives on a lot of bosses, actually.
Interesting. I never touched them.
Basically, if you could attack them across the room, that's it. I'm using knives. Just shoot, 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 shoot.
You might enjoy Albus mode.
But you were talking about the magnet thing, which I guess is also a traversal ability.
It's one of the traversal abilities that isn't in other games, in addition to absorb into a wall, but that's like navigate space in the wall in very discrete locations, much like Magnesis. So, you know, and there's only like 2 places that's not Dracula's castle that's used.
Yeah, something like that.
There's a lot of this game, but most of it feels like padding. Like the whole time you're chasing Albus, it's just like a almost context-free new zone. He's at the end of it, or he's in the zone after the zone you're in.
The bosses don't even have anything to do with Albus that I know of. They're just there.
Yeah, you fight a Frankenstein and a giant crab, big skeleton, a skull with worms coming out of it. These are all classic monster designs that we've seen.
You know who's not in this?
Who is not in this?
Legion.
That is true.
My boy Legion. Like, one of my favorite Castlevania bosses.
Like, there's not an equivalent of dude what spawns little dudes.
Yeah.
Again, one more knock against this game. Barely Castlevania. Doesn't even have big ball of corpses.
Yep.
So hopefully that doesn't count too much against it as we stack it up against all of the other Metroidvania games in our stack rank. I assume you're more or less done with notable things to note through your own personal playthrough.
I can't think of anything to talk about. Curse is very frustrating in this game.
Curse is you can't attack for a while.
Yeah, because it drains your MP.
Theoretically, you could use glyph unions, but
yeah,
hearts are a lot harder to come by. But thankfully, there are only a very few enemies that do it, but Albus does it. In that boss fight, don't get hit by that one move. Otherwise, please save state.
No. Yeah, I don't think I actually ever got cursed by him.
Also curses enemies when you do Albus mode, although for them it's just it makes them slower.
It also curses them when you use his spell.
Oh yeah.
I used his spell a lot until everything started having
resistance to a dark type move. Yeah, funny how that works. Regardless, I have a resistance to ranking this game higher than, let's say, 27? Oof.
Yeah, I'm debating how low do I want to go here anyway. And actually, we've got 27 in the same game. It's Chasm.
Yeah, another game that's very Castlevania inspired, that you save villagers within it who give you little, subquests. It's a formula. I'm not making any grand point here.
I mean, so that's kind of a funny comparison, too, because, Chasm doesn't really have that much going on. It's a pretty straightforward Castlevania.
Yeah, but what it does have is a bit more of interconnectivity and a discrete singular game world instead of a collection of smaller zones. For some reason, I kind of like a randomly generated generic Castlevania experience more than what Order of Ecclesia presented me with.
Harsh.
Pretty harsh. If Dracula's Castle was maybe a bit earlier or had a bit more going on other than you get the wall ability, I'd probably rate it higher. But as it was kind of just going through the motions of a series of hallways and an awful boss in the bottom right. So
Dracula's castle in this game really reminded me of the inverted castle, in that, like, you're basically done. We're just gonna throw some more bosses at you.
Yeah. That is true. Like a neat thing that happens, again, also in Order of Ecclesia, like you just got used to, it's just a world map of tiny zones, and finally you get a big place to explore. Great. And then the actual act of exploring it is kind of underwhelming.
Yeah.
As well as, this game is twice as long, but not really. It's just a glorified boss rush.
And all of your quests are done except for, like, one that's not even in the castle.
Yep. And you can only get there by pursuing True End, which is kind of arcane, but thankfully it spells it out pretty clearly if you do get Bad End.
Yeah.
Where I'm thinking is, it definitely doesn't go below Aquaria, which is 28. And so I think ultimately, I gotta put it below Chasm.
Yeah. I'm staring here at Legacy of the Wizard as my current 28.
I see.
I mean, I liked it. It definitely had some of that old jank.
I think Order of Ecclesia plays much better than Legacy of the Wizard.
Am I saying the old jank goes below? Yeah, I think so. Order of Ecclesia also at 28.
I get it. Like, Legacy of the Wizard is a much more interesting game, but also, just watch a playthrough. Order of Ecclesia, you can have some fun with it. It's kind of rote, but, it is still ultimately a decently produced Castlevania game. I think this is just a discrepancy between expectations, especially myself, who allegedly made such claims as best on the DS, which, I mean, we don't have any other entries on our current stack rank, but I'm pretty sure I know where it would rank at this point.
I mean, I also didn't play any of the DS games as they came out, but, like, Dawn of Sorrow is gonna be like Arya, right?
So, again, I've lost my memory. Who knows how good or bad it might be? But I would assume it is similar enough that's the main complaint is that it's basically just too much like Aria of Sorrow, but a little bit more overbaked. Who knows? Instead, I have an appetite for a different game. What are you serving up hot and fresh for us?
Random complaint while I'm still thinking about it.
Sure.
The bosses had some weird, like, semi-polygon or, like, awkward paper doll thing going on with them sometimes.
Oh, like the big sprite.
Yeah, the, like, big sprite, and we're gonna try to rotate it like it's a 3D image, but it's not. I don't know. It particularly bothered me when Dracula started swinging his legs around.
When he stopped being, like, a static, waved the cape and cast a spell and started trying to grab you.
Yeah.
Or do a big kick.
Yeah, I don't know. Something was just very janky about those big kicks.
I wonder if it looked better on the tiny, tiny DS screen.
Maybe.
Or at the very least less, like, clearly pixels being manipulated in a Mode 7 style of way.
Yeah.
I getcha.
But where we're going next is a game that I had been looking forward to and then completely missed when it came out because I'm incapable of playing more than one game a month anymore, apparently.
Yeah.
So we're going to play Gestalt, Steam and Cinder, which came out July.
This is the steampunk cowboy?
Yeah. I think that's a fairly accurate description of its aesthetic.
I've really only seen the splash page of it, so...
I played a demo of it a long time ago before it had a release date announced.
Okay. Hopefully it's good. Hopefully the whole thing is good. The Gestalt, if you will. But if you've enjoyed the entirety of our oeuvre, you can please contact us at invertedcastlepodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at invertedcastlepl. Never forget the P. We are, of course, on Facebook, other social media platforms. YouTube is probably where you're hearing this.
It's kind of even between podcast and YouTube.
You know the metrics far greater than I. So yeah, divert any metric questions directly to Tom.
They're like, I don't know, they don't tend to go up on the same episode, which is interesting.
More arcane knowledge that I will never understand. But anyway, we're not here to talk about ourselves. We're here to name ourselves at the end of this episode. I've been Eric Fox.
And I've been Thomas Blight.
And remember, kids, P is stored in the crystal.